what's happening, everyone? It is I, the man, the myth, the mustache, Tim here, and I have a brand new video for you! Welcome to part 14 of What If Deku Could Use Haki? Everyone, we are in for a ride, so sit back, relax, maybe hold on to the edge of your seat. So, let's get started! Class 1A and the students were all stunned, for they could barely comprehend what was happening. The sheer power and prowess that both heroes were showing was nothing short of incredible. It was hard to even keep up with it. All Might was using his full strength at this point, and his flurry of attacks was almost impossible to perceive. Midoriya managed to dodge it all, however, using his observation haki to continuously avoid damage. The green-haired boy would occasionally deliver his own punches, using armament to deal more damage. They're evenly matched, Todoroki muttered, sounding awestruck. Almost everyone agreed to this statement, because Midoriya and All Might did look like they were equal, until Rayleigh spoke up.
It may look that way, but this fight might end at any second,
the silver-haired geezer said as he pointed towards Midoriya on the big screen. Everyone was confused as they followed his finger. At first, they couldn't see what he meant, but then they were horrified when they finally saw what he was talking about. It was Midoriya's eyes. They were bloodshot red. His eyes looked as if they were intensely strained. Even Aizawa's eyes were healthier than this. No one understood what was happening. To them, it just seemed that the green-haired boy had somehow been wounded in his eyes, so they all looked towards Rayleigh for an explanation. His gaze never left the screen as he explained.
Midoriya is abusing himself. In this battle, his greatest strength is the ability to see all of his opponent's attacks. But even that has its limits. It also doesn't help that every one of All Might's punches is essentially a one-shot kill, which greatly increases the strain on Midoriya. It's only a matter of time before he reaches his limits.
Everyone in the room was shocked to hear this. They didn't fully understand how it worked, but they knew enough to say that Midoriya held the disadvantage. Aizawa almost panicked as he exclaimed, "Then we need to stop them. Midoriya could easily injure himself if this continues." Rayleigh just silenced the teacher as he spoke.
Maybe, but I'd say that they're both in the same boat right now,
the silver-haired geezer said as he pointed towards All Might. Everyone was confused as they carefully observed the number one hero. They couldn't find anything particular at first, until they saw something strange. They couldn't tell what it was, but it looked like All Might's body was barely keeping itself together. Everyone turned their attention towards Rayleigh as he explained.
All Might has taken some punishment from Midoriya, and his relentless punches like this don't help his condition. They're both reaching their limits. The question is, who will fall first? Anything can determine the match at this point, even something as dumb and pathetic as a feather landing on one of their heads.
Everyone was put on edge after hearing this. They were witnessing a true battle, where both fighters refused to give in for anything. It was anyone's game, as they had just been told. So now they just had to wait for the deciding factor to manifest. The slugfest continued in bloody violence, but no one had fallen yet. All Might kept missing his attacks, while Midoriya was dodging and landing many of his. They were equal, until something happened. Midoriya landed one of his punches on All Might's face, causing a drop of blood to spew from it. This drop was small and insignificant, but the most insignificant parts become the most important in the most intense battles. The droplet flew across the air until it landed in Midoriya's eye. The green-haired boy staggered for what could only be a split second, but that was still enough to turn the tide. Next thing he knew, All Might landed one of his devastating blows to Midoriya's face. Midoriya was thrown back and crashed into the ground. The green-haired boy then forced himself up, only to be met by another barrage of attacks. Midoriya raised his guard into a defensive stance, now being forced to tank all of the hits. Everyone looked horrified as they watched All Might beat on the defending Midoriya. It was brutal, and eventually, Aizawa had enough.
"I'm ending this now! He might get killed out there!"
the normally tired teacher shouted, as he reached for the microphone to stop All Might. He couldn't grab it though, for he was stopped when Rayleigh took a firm grip over his hand. Aizawa looked at the man with a hint of anger, until he saw his expression. Rayleigh was conflicted, like he was doing something that he actually didn't want to do.
"What are you doing? He's being beaten out there!"
Aizawa shouted angrily. Rayleigh's expression didn't change as he responded.
I know what it looks like, but let me ask you something. If All Might knows that he has won, why hasn't he stopped attacking? If Midoriya knew that he couldn't win, why hasn't he stopped?
Aizawa's eyes widened upon hearing this. At first he thought the old man was insane, but then he realized it was true. Both All Might and Midoriya knew what they were doing, so they would have given up if it had ever become hopeless. Rayleigh's pained expression grew as he said,
I know it's hard, but we need to have faith in Midoriya.
Aizawa stopped for a moment until he retracted his hand completely. It was hard to do this, but Rayleigh was right. Midoriya was trying his hardest right now, so the least they could do is let him go through with this battle. Everyone turned their heads towards the screen, continuing their observation of the match. Midoriya was still defending, while All Might continued to rain down hell. It would probably be easier for him to surrender at this point, but Midoriya refused. He was determined to win this, and he knew that he could do it. All Might threw another punch to Midoriya, breaking his guard open. He then threw another punch straight into Midoriya's face. Everyone was once again horrified, thinking that this was the end, but all of that changed in an instant. The green-haired boy somehow managed to grab onto All Might's hair before delivering a powerful Haki-infused punch to his face. The horror quickly turned into shock as they realized what just happened. No way! Did he just... Kirishima uttered, unable to finish his sentence.
He took that hit on purpose.
Now he has a firm grasp over All Might. Todoroki finished, not knowing how to react. Everyone watched as Midoriya continued to deliver punch after punch to All Might's face, not slowing down for a second. Eventually, All Might grabbed onto Midoriya's hair before he began to do the same thing. The scene just became more violent, and it was all reaching its end. Both fighters wore feral expressions, neither willing to give in to their opponent. It continued for an excruciating amount of time, until they punched each other so hard they lost their grip of one another. Both fighters staggered back, clearly ready to drop to the ground at any moment. But they forced themselves to stand as they bellowed ferociously. They pulled their fists back, readying their final punch before throwing it. Right as they were about to collide, Rayleigh noticed something odd. He noticed how Midoriya's Haki-infused fist was covered in sparks and embers, as if it was about to combust. Then the hits collided, and the result shocked even Rayleigh. The collision made a fiery blast, as if something just exploded. At first, they thought Bakugo had done it, but remembered he was out cold. The attack could have only come from one place, if it wasn't Bakugo. It was Midoriya, but wasn't he supposed to be quirkless? Everyone looked towards Rayleigh for an answer. The silver-haired geezer showed them his baffled expression, as he simply shrugged.
I'm just as baffled as you are, but I have a theory for what just happened. He might have thrown his punch at such a speed that the friction lit it ablaze, but that's just a guess.
The dust then cleared around the fighters, and everyone's jaw hit the floor once more. All Might was on the ground, and this time, he was out cold. Midoriya, on the other hand, was still standing. The green-haired boy was shaking from the pain and exhaustion as he raised his fist to the heavens. He then lost all of his energy before dropping unconscious to the ground. Everyone was silent once more, and no one even dared to comment on what they saw. This was a fight without any form of restrictions. They truly gave it their all. They both used their full strength, and this still happened. Izuku Midoriya actually defeated the number one hero, All Might. Midoriya, All Might, and Bakugo were all brought to the infirmary, where Recovery Girl didn't waste a second to scold them all proportionately. Aizawa then informed everyone that they would all be attending a training camp, regardless of their results in the final exam. Some time passed, letting Midoriya recover as much as possible before it was time to attend the camp. Class 1A sat on the bus, all babbling about various things, until they finally reached their destination. Everyone left the bus and was confused over why they stopped here. That is when a black car pulled up before the hero team known as the Wild Wild Pussycats came out of it. Some of the students started getting excited upon seeing the heroes, although Midoriya stayed calm. The green-haired boy hadn't fully recovered from his bout with All Might, therefore he wasn't listening to what anyone was saying at the moment. It wasn't until Sero spoke up, "Run back to the bus!" that Midoriya was brought to attention. The green-haired boy was oblivious to what was happening, until he sensed something bad was about to happen. Pixie Bob leapt behind the entirety of Class 1A before she shoved them all down the cliff with a landslide. The pro hero giggled upon hearing everyone's panicked screams, until she heard a voice speak to her from behind. "Could you give me a heads up next time you intend on throwing me down a bottomless cliff?" Pixie Bob turned around to see who it was. It was Midoriya. He had somehow noticed the attack and leapt on top of the bus before it happened. Both Mandalay and Pixie Bob were shocked to see that someone had managed to avoid the attack, but Aizawa showed absolutely no expression whatsoever.
"Midoriya, please go and join your classmates. The camp has already started, and you only have so much time to get there,"
the tired teacher said while looking at Midoriya. The green-haired boy sighed before he leapt down from the bus and said, "Fine," before proceeding to leap down the cliff. Upon landing, Midoriya saw that his class was scattered in a panic, and the green-haired boy only face-palmed at the sight. "Couldn't you have warned us about that attack?" Mina shouted. Midoriya didn't flinch upon hearing these words, as he calmly answered, "You don't deserve to dodge if you can't see it coming." Mina wanted to retort in more anger, but was interrupted when Mineta screamed like a girl. Midoriya turned his eyes in that direction, and saw that the gray-haired boy was being chased by what looked like a monster made of dirt. Midoriya wasted no time as he jumped into action. He infused his arm with Haki before he crushed the monster's head with a single blow. Midoriya panted heavily after that, for he still hadn't fully recovered. That is when Ida walked up and asked, "So what's the plan?" Midoriya looked confused as he asked, "Why are you asking me?" The entire class looked at him as if he was an idiot, until Todoroki answered him. "Because we all know that you're the strongest in our class, considering what we saw during the final exam." Everyone, even Bakugo, nodded in agreement to Todoroki's words, without a form of hesitation. Midoriya didn't expect this at all, but he sighed and gave them a plan. "Okay, here's the plan. Step 1, work together. Step 2, don't die," he said before charging back to battle more Earth creatures. Class 1A was shocked to hear this, but they quickly understood that they needed to cooperate and be careful. They all gathered themselves before they followed Midoriya in his charge. It took a little more than an hour, but Class 1A managed to get to the camp just in time. Both Mandalay and Pixie Bob were impressed, especially by Midoriya. They noticed how it was mostly he who drove them forward, and they wondered just what he was capable of. Pixie Bob then proceeded to jump around Midoriya, Ida, Todoroki, and Bakugo until Midoriya noticed some kids standing in the far back. "Hey, who's that kid over there?" Midoriya asked, trying to get past the clinging Pixie Bob. Mandalay noticed who Midoriya was pointing at and answered, "That's Kota. He's my second cousin." Midoriya was intrigued by this as he walked up to Kota. The boy looked angry as Midoriya said, "Hey, I'm Izuku Midoriya. It's nice to meet you." Kota just looked more angry until he punched Midoriya in the family jewels. Everyone watching felt bad for Midoriya until they noticed he hadn't even reacted. In fact, it was Kota that retracted his hand in pain. The boy rubbed his hand until Midoriya bopped him over the skull. "Ow, what was that for?" the boy exclaimed as he rubbed his head. Midoriya just looked at Kota with a serious glare as he said, "Because you don't punch people that you just met. Especially not down there. But I have to say, that was a good punch." Kota looked stunned upon hearing this, until he scoffed and said, "Whatever. I don't want to be anywhere near any wannabe heroes," before he walked off. Midoriya's expression followed Kota until he turned to face everyone. They all looked at him shocked, as if he was the boldest person on the planet. Midoriya looked at them confused, as he asked, "What?" Everyone just turned away, trying to show it was nothing. Midoriya looked confused, until he face-palmed when he realized how much he reminded himself of Rayleigh just now. Class 1A got the rest of that day to rest, for it was going to be hell from here on out. They all woke up early the next day, and Aizawa dragged them to a training field. Everyone was tired, except for Midoriya because Rayleigh's training had made him used to it.
"All right, class, the purpose of this camp is to improve your quirks and abilities as much as possible. You've gone through a lot, but you haven't improved that much in the physical department," Aizawa said, snapping everyone to attention. He then tossed a softball to Midoriya before he said, "You know what to do, Midoriya. Anything goes as long as you stay within the circle." Midoriya just nodded as he walked up to the circle.
He then infused his arm with Haki before throwing the ball with his full strength. Aizawa immediately got a notification on his phone and his eyes went wide. Aizawa wanted to prove to his students that they hadn't improved as much as they thought, but Midoriya's score didn't help this case. The tired teacher turned his phone towards the class, who were all in shock. 760 meters! Kaminari shouted. He improved by that much! Mina then followed. Aizawa was baffled as he turned to Midoriya and asked, "How did you improve that much in such a short amount of time?" Sounding as baffled as he looked, Midoriya just looked at his teacher as he answered, "Sir, no offense, but this camp is nothing but a vacation for me. I know you intend to put us through hell, but there's nothing you can do that'll make me feel that way. The training my master put me through for more than 10 years now can't even be compared to anything else. It makes hell seem like heaven," the green-haired boy said, shivering at the mere mention of Rayleigh's training. Aizawa was still baffled, but he finally understood why Midoriya was so strong. He was even intrigued, and would make a note to talk to Rayleigh about it later. "I see. That sure explains a lot, but I have something special in mind for you," Aizawa said, before he turned back to the rest of the class. "I doubt that any of you have been getting the same kind of training as Midoriya, which means you haven't improved nearly as quickly as he has. Just as said, we'll be putting you through hell from now on." Class 1A trembled upon hearing Aizawa's words, as he then led them to the place that they would be doing said training. Everyone was quickly told what to do, until it came down to Midoriya. The green-haired boy was just standing there, not sure of what to do. "Hey kid, don't just stand there! You'll be joining me in training!" Tiger shouted, trying to get Midoriya's attention. The green-haired boy turned to the hero as he said, "I hate to break it to you, but your training is a waste of time." Tiger got angry upon hearing this as he said, "What did you say?" While stomping his way over to Midoriya, the green-haired boy calmly stood his ground, not afraid of the approaching hero, until Aizawa stopped Tiger in his tracks. "He's right, Tiger. To him, your training is a waste of time," the tired teacher said calmly. Tiger looked shocked upon hearing this, as Aizawa then spoke to Midoriya. "Midoriya, I want you to focus on that move you did at the end of the final exam. Try to master and improve it, and give it a name while you're at it." Midoriya looked surprised upon hearing this, for he barely knew what that attack was. Rayleigh had told him about his theory, but it didn't help him figure out how to use it properly. "I'll try my best," Midoriya responded to his teacher, determined to try to master this new technique he unlocked. Aizawa nodded at Midoriya before the green-haired boy walked off. "Is this really a good idea to let him train on his own? He's still a student," Tiger then said after Midoriya was out of hearing range. Aizawa turned to Tiger and calmly answered, "There's nothing we can do to help him improve, for he has most certainly done it already. Also, I honestly don't know what to do with him. He's quirkless, and he defeated a full-powered All Might on his lonesome during the final exam." Tiger's jaw hit the ground, for he couldn't believe what he was hearing. Not only was Midoriya so strong he had no choice but to let him train on his own, but he was also quirkless. Not only that, he defeated All Might! Tiger stopped questioning Aizawa's decision, and almost felt relieved he didn't have to deal with a kid that somehow was capable of knocking the #1 hero out cold. Instead, he decided to push harder on the other students, so they could at least be as strong as Midoriya. And that's our video for the day, so thank you all for watching and indulging yourselves in our story thus far. I hope you've been enjoying it, because I know I have. This has been a blast. Now, there are a few more things I need to go over before the video ends. First, we have a second channel called Anime Deep Dive. Anime Deep Dive goes over the hard facts and lore of a wide variety of anime, which is sure to expand your weeb knowledge of all kinds, guaranteed. On top of that, we have a third channel called We the Celestials Naruto What Ifs. It's what we do on this channel, but in the vast world and lore of Naruto. So go check that out if you're in the mood for some jutsu action. Second, on behalf of We the Celestials, I want to thank everyone involved in the production of today's awesome content. Their details will be in the description below. Finally, if you're interested in what we do here at We the Celestials, then I want to extend an invitation to join our team. We only have one caveat: you must be 16 years or older to join our crew. You can sign up for whichever category fulfills your interests by joining the recruitment Discord in the description below. Our Discord is an all-around fantastic place to be, whether you're a fan or looking to join our band of misfits. And once again, that is it for today's video, so thank you all for watching, and I do hope you have a great day. And I do hope you are taking good care of yourselves. Things are scary out there. But I do say this, doing things that make you happy makes the darkness go away for a little while, sometimes for longer. So, do something that makes you happy. Mustache out.